A young man named Bobby, who was in the middle of exams, faced difficulties with his French language. He was so clueless that he didn't even attempt a single question on the answer sheet. While his friends were almost done, he kept looking around hoping for someone to give him a cheat sheet. Unfortunately, no one helped, and his teacher announced there were 2 more minutes until the end of the exam. He realized his incompetence in French. He banged his head against the car, expressing his disappointment. However, behind all this, Bobby had a friend who always encouraged him through thick and thin. His name is Don. Eventually, Bobby's disappointment seemed to fade when he saw a sweet girl in front of him. Bonnie. It appeared that Bobby also had a crush on Bonnie. Unfortunately, Bonnie already had a boyfriend, so Bobby could only dream of her being his. After the exam, they had a long summer vacation. To make the most of it, Don invited Bobby to a party that night at a place where women having hormone activities. Bobby felt it wasn't a good idea, especially since neither he nor Don had ever done that before. But in the end, they were escorted by Don's brother, Billy. Upon arrival, they were immediately greeted by beautiful women. Bobby and Don were each given a girl to accompany them that night. Unfortunately, they ended up being tortured by their women due to their overly sadistic hormoning skill. Consequently, they fled, and it became a bad experience for them. Meanwhile, these women were Bobby's mother and her maid. Bobby was portrayed as the son of a wealthy man. That day, Bobby was summoned by his father to his office. Bobby's father had received information from the school about his poor grades in French. Despite his father wanting Bobby to work as a politician in the future, so he wanted Bobby to master French. However, Bobby was not interested at all because Bobby preferred things related to space. He wanted to become an astronomer. However, his father remained adamant and called a private tutor to teach him French. The next day, while swimming, he saw a woman waiting for him. She was Terry, the French teacher hired by his father. Bobby was surprised to see that the teacher still looked young. There, Terry received instructions from Bobby's father that if she could get Bobby an A grade, she would be given a $10,000 bonus. Upon hearing this, Terry became more enthusiastic about teaching Bobby, but with the condition that Bobby shouldn't know about it. In the evening, Terry immediately began teaching Bobby. However, Bobby still seemed indifferent. Instead, he asked about Terry's love life. Terry said it wasn't his concern. That night, Bobby and Don returned to their antics of seeking pleasure. This time, Billy offered them the cashier girl who worked at the dinner place. Bobby was the first to get a turn. Just as they were hormoning, the girl's boyfriend arrived with his biker gang. Fortunately, they managed to escape, but Bobby no longer wanted to hang out with Billy because it would surely end in bad luck. Bobby, in his room, looked at the star posters he had put on the ceiling, hoping that one day he would become a very successful astronomer. In his distress, he walked by the edge of the pool. There he saw Terry swimming. Curious, Bobby peeked and followed her, hoping to see more clearly. But that night was not his lucky day. The next day, Terry saw Bobby sleeping instead of studying. Bobby seemed to lack enthusiasm, so they decided to just chat. Because of their conversation, Bobby and Terry became even closer. Bobby didn't hesitate to accompany Terry to her gymnastics practice. Bobby observed Terry and hoped to have hormone activities with her. Before long, Don came to pick him up and began to suspect that Bobby seemed interested in his private tutor. One day, Terry gave Bobby an exercise. If Bobby managed to get a B grade, Terry would take Bobby out for lunch at a restaurant. Luckily, Bobby got a B grade that day. To fulfill her promise, Terry invited Bobby to have lunch together. However, Terry met her boyfriend named Jack, who she was angry with. Jack was surprised to see Terry with another man. Jack asked Terry to go with him that day. Fortunately, Jack received a call from a client, so it gave Terry and Bobby a chance to escape. Out of love, Jack chased after Bobby and Terry on his motorcycle. Jack failed to catch them, but he managed to note down their license plate. That night, once again, Bobby tried to peek at Terry swimming. However, moments later, Terry finished swimming, and Bobby lost track of her. It turned out Terry was hiding and caught Bobby following her. She told Bobby not to do it again. A few days later, Bobby was seen looking for Terry. He then asked his mother about Terry. His mother said Terry was out walking with a man in a car. Hearing this, Bobby looked jealous. Shortly after, he heard a car outside, and it turned out to be Terry and Jack, who had just been out together. Bobby became even more jealous seeing Terry with her boyfriend, especially when he saw Terry kiss Jack. Because of that, Bobby looked downcast when with Don and Billy. That night, they had planned to have fun in the bar. However, within a few minutes there, they caused a scene. This time, Don and Billy were causing trouble. Meanwhile, Terry went to Jack's house. However, she couldn't find him. She searched the garage and heard noises. It turned out to be Jack and another woman having hormone activities. As a result, Terry became angry and frustrated. She regretted getting back together with her boyfriend. Meanwhile, Don and Billy were up to mischief again. They flirted with a woman coming out of the bar, unaware that her boyfriend was behind her. Don and Billy eventually fled and found themselves cornered. Fortunately, Bobby arrived in a car and rescued them. Back home, Bobby saw Terry looking sad. Terry admitted that she regretted getting back with Jack. Hearing this, Bobby became happy and excited again. He even expressed his feelings to Terry. However, Terry felt it wasn't appropriate, especially since she was feeling down. She also felt that the age gap between them was too significant. Several hours later, Bobby saw Terry swimming again. This time, he joined in, carried away by the atmosphere. They finally decided to have hormone activities. Until a few weeks later, Bobby celebrated his birthday at home, inviting many people including his friends. Shortly after, Bobby was surprised by the appearance of Bonnie, who hadn't been seen for a long time. This time, Bonnie noticed a change in Bobby. She felt that Bobby looked much cooler and glowing. She was sure that Bobby must be in love. However, Bobby didn't want to tell Bonnie about it. Day by day, Bobby's relationship with Terry grew stronger. Until one day, Jack came back looking for Terry, but Bobby said she wasn't home. Jack felt challenged by Bobby's words and challenged him to a fight. Bobby excused himself briefly to get something, and it turned out he grabbed a Glock and pointed it at Jack. As a result, Jack abandoned his intentions and fled. One day, Bobby's parents were going out of town due to business related. Bobby became even more impatient because it would be a fun day for him with Terry. He even asked his maid to take a vacation to avoid any interruptions. That night, Billy and Don came to Bobby's house. However, they accidentally heard noise downstairs. They witnessed an extraordinary event, Bobby and Terry having hormone activities. One day, thanks to Terry's, Bobby became more prepared and proficient in French. He couldn't wait to take the exam. But that night, their togetherness was discovered by his father. His father accidentally saw Bobby and Terry sharing a sweet kiss in the room. Finally, the long-awaited day arrived. Terry anxiously awaited the results of Bobby's French exam. Bobby came out and said he got an A grade. They were happy for their success. To celebrate, Bobby planned to take Terry on vacation. But Terry couldn't because she had to leave. She would visit her parents in France the next day, especially since she already bought a ticket. As a result, Bobby felt disappointed. When he got home, Bobby was called by his father to talk about something. His father was proud because Bobby had achieved good grades, so he also paid a bonus to Terry for her success. Hearing this, Bobby felt like he was just being played by Terry. He felt that Terry approached him only for money. He got angry at Terry and said something rude to her. Bobby got slapped and ran away. The next day, Terry prepared to leave for the airport. Bobby apologized for what he had said yesterday. He just didn't want to lose Terry. But Terry said Bobby could find her anytime, and she wouldn't forget him. And the film ends.